Critics are outraged after new evidence is revealing just how deep New York City's Jewish hate crisis goes. A stunning new report by United Jewish Teachers says there have been 250 anti-Semitic incidents in the city's public schools since the October 7th attacks. 65% of those included harassment, vandalism, assault, and verbal threats. Here's the group's president, Moshe Spern.
When you put your own indoctrinated hate and you libel the state of Israel, and we've seen time and time again, we see it in the streets of New York City with our mayor, when you call the prime minister of Israel a war criminal and then 2 days later a Jewish man on a holiday is stabbed, that is a sign to you. When students are being indoctrinated into the classroom, students are not protected. And and the kids around them are indoctrinated to hate them. Jewish students, Zionistic students, nobody is safe right now in New York City schools.
In focus, Jason Chaffetz, Fox News contributor and former Republican congressman from Utah. Good to see you, Jason. So this problem is not getting better, it's getting worse. The mayor has come out since this latest attack on a synagogue and said he condemns that, disavows the action, so on and so forth. I'm paraphrasing him. What needs to happen?
It's pervasive. It's a form of terrorism. It is ongoing. 250 incidents is just the tip of the iceberg. Those are the ones that actually get reported. Imagine the intimidation going on in the public schools of people that are, teenagers or going to grade school. And I think the gentleman that was on just before is right. That indoctrination to hate Israel. They don't even believe that Israel or Jews have the right to exist. That is so unhealthy. It goes beyond that, though. It's corrosive. It is, I believe, a form of terrorism. And so I think, though, the mayor has given some lip service to it, but I don't think anybody believes that he can say out loud that Israel and the Jews have the right to exist, and that he believes there's inequality. I'd like to hear him repetitively say that, but I don't think he will, and it's certainly not conducive to his background.
Well, just hearing a brand new mayor at the time say, Norma, he's not going to the Israel Day parade. This is the same mayor in New York City's Mamdani who wanted to have the prime minister of Israel, Netanyahu, arrested, figured out, I don't really have the legal standing to do that, or anybody around me, they don't have it either, but I still want it. I mean, those types of words and actions really matter, because no one really separates, the second largest Jewish population in the world from Israel, the first. Here's New York Congressman Mike Lawler unleashing a profanity-laden criticism of Attorney General Letitia James for failing to do her job and crack down on Jewish hate.
The Attorney General of the state of New York, Letitia James, needs to actually do her job, which means prosecute anti-Semitic hate crimes. So rather than running around doing whatever the hell she does, where she plays politics every day, maybe she can actually focus on what her job is, which is to ensure the safety and well-being of New Yorkers as the chief law enforcement officer in the state of New York.
So Congressman Lawler's comments that you just heard immediately followed what you're watching on the screen. An anti-Semitic attack in a New York City synagogue. A suspect tore in during services, hitting worshipers, calling them swine, damaging property. This is just one of more than 200 anti-Jewish crimes reported in the city since the start of 2026. It's an increase over the same time period from last year. More than half of all hate crimes in the city were anti-Semitic, despite Jewish New Yorkers making up about 10% of the population. Jason.
Yeah, law enforcement needs to pick it up, but Congressman Lawler is 100% right. There need to be prosecutions, and unfortunately, I think it's going to be actually up to the feds. The feds are going to have to step in here. Somewhere between the Department of Education, the Department of Justice, they're going to have to start to enforce this. If this was happening in another part of the country to another religion, that would have already happened. I know it's dear to his heart, New York City is to President Trump, but I believe his Department of Justice, DOE, they're going to have to step it up because New Yorkers have shown that they are not willing to protect these people, to enforce the law, and to allow these kids. I mean, we're talking mostly kids here. I mean, that's a synagogue. That has adults too. But imagine that kid who's 12 years old, starting school. Does he feel safe, or does she feel safe walking down the hall, going to their locker, and then to math class? Right now, I don't think they do. And that's not a way to live in the United States of America.
Well, and you're going back to our previous topic about the growing, anti-Semitism in schools here in New York City. And of course, we saw it on college campuses 2 summers ago and last summer as well. Let's move to this. Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff is going viral for what many critics are deeming an offensive remark about President Trump's close personal aide. Axios puts it this way, quote, Ossoff is testing Democrats' appetite for going low, end of quote. Ossoff's initial comment referenced Natalie Harp, a Trump aide who the president first learned of in 2019. At that time, she thanked him for supporting a law allowing her access to an experimental treatment that saved her life from bone cancer. Well, after a lot of backlash, Ossoff attempted to clean up what he'd said.
See, he doesn't want to do the job. He wants to build his ballroom and travel with Natalie on their apparently defenseless flying palace gifted by the Emir of Qatar.
Why'd you decide to invoke Natalie Harp specifically in that speech?
Here's the point. We're in wartime. The commander-in-chief has mired us in this geopolitical disaster. People have lost their lives. Our naval logistics are frayed. The global energy system is in crisis. And he retreats into this bubble of West Wing aides who are his security blanket to make him feel good about himself.
But I tell you, Jason, when he started off with, here's the point, I thought he was going to say, I have no policy ideas, I'm out of material, so I'll talk about this.
Jon Ossoff, he is the political scum that is an embarrassment to this country. Natalie Harp, who I've known for years, she's a bone cancer survivor, for goodness sake. She works harder than just about anybody I can possibly know. Yeah, she works in close proximity to the president, and thank goodness, because she's got her heart and her mind for the United States of America, and she serves the president of the United States, for goodness sake. He does this just to get political points, to try to raise money. That's the political scum that this country is just absolutely just abhors. And how dare he? He does it all to get political power, to try to raise money. He should be apologizing to that, to her family, and to the country. If you want to go after the principal, you want to go after Donald Trump, great. You want to go after J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio and have a beef with them, that's fine. But the staff, that's out of bounds. She does not deserve this. It demands an apology. And there's nothing more disgusting than a guy like that.
Well, look, Democrats also seem to be leaning into their thirst trap era, highlighting young candidates, including Senator Jon Ossoff, who's garnered the nickname Senator Mabu on social media. The Democrats' official TikTok account also highlighted Michigan Senate candidate Abdul El-Sayed in tight-fitting T-shirts and a grinning Zoran Mamdani with the caption, Mamdani shares resources as the city gets even hotter, in all caps. Your reaction?
Who cares? Who gives a crap about these guys? They think they look great in tight-fitting, shirts. What? That's not the way to run a country. That's what you do when you have no policy ideas. That's what you do when you don't actually have answers. You try to make it personal. You try to throw innuendo that way, and then you try to take off your shirt and say, hey, look at my pecs. I mean, that is just, who votes for that stuff?
Well, we shall see what's coming ahead in the midterm elections with them, some of them on the ticket. Good to see you. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.